BRUCAST is back, baby.
This BRUCAST episode is brought to you by the BRUCAST Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now brew-cast.com/store. Link below.
Back with the fire, can't you see the flames? From Deutschland steps comes the BRUCAST name. Voices like thunder breaking all the chains. Unleash the fury like a runaway train.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please ring the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast recommends to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BRUCAST also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BRUCAST on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links in the description below.
Here we thrive, we survive!
Hey there, BRUCAST fans. Welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, please make a leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all of those this jazz that really helps the channel. It's really important. Subscribe. I checked the ratio, how many of you are subscribers. You should be ashamed, guys. Just subscribe. I'm providing high quality content. You know what? I don't need to oversell myself. You guys know it. It's amazing. Let's welcome our guest of the week. His name is Christopher Wyatt. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm well, thank you.
Christopher, before anything, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate this very much.
All right, so please introduce yourself.
So my name is Christopher Wyatt. I am a professor at a college in Central Texas. I am also an autistic and disability self-advocate. I am partially paralyzed on the right side, and I also have an autism and ADHD diagnosis. I am also the father of 2 wonderful neurodiverse daughters. They both have ADHD. One is diagnosed as autistic. The other is dysgraphic and dyslexic, as well as the ADHD. So we are a neurodiverse family. I research and write about autism and neurodiversity, best practices for teaching. So that's what I research. So I hope I'm, an autistic self-advocate, but an advocate for my daughters, an advocate for my students. And through my research, I hope I'm helping inform other educators around the globe on better ways that we can teach students who may not fit the mold that's expected of students.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like that's super important because when you go into the classroom, you're all teaching them the same way, right? Even though they're not learning the same way.
And I think that that's really important here in the United States in particular, where we have gone into these high stakes testing year after year after year. They take tests, they get measured. We've really adopted a factory approach to education that we see other countries either not adopting or having abandoned slightly over the years. I think of the Northern European countries where they do more play, less screen time, less testing. Hong Kong does less testing now, and we see in other parts of Asia where they're backing off some of the high stakes testing that they found was actually detrimental. But here in the United States, we love our testing and we love our rote learning. We put students in front of screens at very early ages and have them master taking tests. And not everyone is meant to just sit for an hour or 2 hours and click answers on a screen and get a grade. That's not the best way to teach, and I think we know it, but we're afraid to try anything else.
Yeah, I saw a study very recently proving that we learn less through screens than through human contact because historically speaking, we've always learned through other humans. We cannot change that. Like just because now we have nice iPads and nice iPhones, we can all suddenly change how our genetics work. We still learn better from other humans accordingly to this study.
Well, and we know that students learn more when they put away their screens and take notes, draw pictures, if that's how they learn best. So we know that paper is more effective than computer screens, especially at younger ages where their brains, haven't fully transferred the idea of writing to typing. And yet we're pushing the typing and the using of the screens because they're convenient. If you have screens, you don't have to buy textbooks for your students. You just give them an iPad and all the books are on the iPad. So screens are a cost savings in perception, at least, if not reality. So they put these iPads, these Chromebooks, the MacBook Airs in front of computer savvy students. The students all know computers. And then they say, oh, well, open your Kindle reader or your Libby reader and read your book on the screen, take your notes on the screen, take your tests on the screen. And we're really losing out some aspects of learning. I know from your background that you've been involved in the game industry. And one of the things that I do with my students is we develop games, but we start on paper, right? You got to have a storyline. You got to have characters. We work on the background. We do it all on paper at first, because what I find is they're actually far more creative when you give them a box of colored pencils or markers and you tell them, draw your character, tell me your character story, tell me what role your character is going to play in the game. That gets them more engaged and they're really excited by it. And when you explain that, well, eventually this might end up on a screen, but working on paper really helps you. And I just see that in my own class. Once you put paper in front of them and some crayons or some markers, colored pencils, even though they're young adults, right? I'm teaching college students, their eyes they get bright. They just, wow, I can't wait to draw my character and tell you about my character. And so we do character sheets, character profiles, and backgrounds. And these are students who can tell you everything about the characters they play. So they aren't forgetting how important it is to be at a screen in the end. But I just find that working on paper and in small groups where they can talk about their characters and talk about the character's motivations and background, what made the character. And then part of what we do is we analyze characters. So somebody is currently, I have a student, he's analyzing Xerxes from the Hades games. Another student is doing God of War and the characters and what they mean. But they're doing that on paper. They're writing down story maps on paper. They're writing together. They're discussing together, not just in a chat on a screen. So yeah, I see a lot more learning when you have people around a table having fun.
And why do you think is that? Because in theory, the information is being registered somewhere, right? That's what you need to do. You need to register your ideas onto something. So why it is so different for us humans if it's done on paper versus on an iPad?
The first thing, and even doing a podcast, we know it, right? You can see my face, I can see yours, we can see the gestures. Yeah. But in something like Discord or Slack or Teams, you don't. You might see emoticons and maybe some colors. But when you're sitting across from someone, you can see how they slump or how they lean forward. You can see their eyebrows arch or maybe just a grimace when they're looking at something. So those nonverbal cues are so important to human communication that when we do what's called computer-mediated communication, the computer gets in the way of some aspects of our humanity, whether it's even just touching briefly, when you're playing a game. Maybe it's giving someone a high five versus a thumbs up on a screen. There's something different about the actual high five, slapping your hands against each other versus giving someone a thumbs up emoji. It's not the same. And it's just not.
It's not. I saw recently that the new generation, what is it? Generation Alpha, Z, I don't know anymore. They consider the thumbs up emoji offensive. It's like passive. What? What are you talking about? I don't know. This just popped in my head.
But you think about it. Like if someone just writes back, okay, hey, do you have plans for dinner? Do you want to get together at the pub? And they write back, okay. It just doesn't feel right.
It's
Okay.
passive aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. The other person might be like super enthusiastically about it. They could be like, okay, yeah, let's do it. I can't wait. But you just don't see it. You don't know.
Yeah, and I think that people are really surprised when they hear that the way I teach my communications classes or my business communications classes is game development, but it's something the students understand. They all have played a game, but what they haven't witnessed is that some of my friends who do video game production and writing at studios in California or New York, they are around a table. They are often talking live to each other. They're not just sending messages on Slack or Discord. It's just not the same. They want to see each other. They want to, hey, let me hold up a sketch of what I've done, or let's talk about this character. Let's talk about what it means to win. And I think the students are really surprised. I bring in guests. So in the next few weeks, we're going to have someone from Marvel who was involved in some of the card games that Marvel also owned. And when you think about it, those games, the Pokemon, the Gathering, right? Students really like those games because they are face-to-face. They love something as silly, I don't know about you, but exploding kittens.
Oh, I love it.
Unstable unicorns.
It's great.
Yeah, they love it. And sure, they could do those things on a screen, but boy, you get kids around a table, young adults around a table, tabletop gaming, it's amazing. They will watch a video, right? They'll watch Will Wheaton or somebody on tabletop gaming, but when you're doing it in person, they just learn so much more about human communication and how to develop something.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can talk from experience. I took online classes and I attended real classes, of course, throughout my life. And just the fact that you need to go somewhere and you need to socially interact with other people, your brain is just creating more memories naturally than you just staying at home and you're previously watching Netflix and then you watch like an online classroom thing and then you go back to Facebook. Like it just doesn't register the same.
And I admit that I'm someone who, I still go to movies. I still go to concerts, right? My children and I, we go to the movies, we go see things, because sitting at home and streaming it is not the same. There is a social value to sitting in an audience, and it's contagious, right? When someone in the audience laughs, pretty soon the laughter gets louder and louder and it ripples. I just went to go see a musical this weekend, and was it great? No, but it was still, the audience was into it. They were clapping and cheering along with the songs and the dancing. There was even some tap dancing by one of the stars. It just brings the audience in a way that sitting on my couch watching a taped version of it on Netflix, it doesn't do. And we don't learn those interaction skills. We don't learn those social skills. And coming at it from my point of view, which is neurodiversity, I want my daughters to understand other people. I want them to understand social cues and social meaning. Excuse me. The idea that you can just be on your screen and do well. I'll have autistics tell me, well, I just want to work at home and I don't want to deal with people. And that might be okay, but that's not how you end up moving along in your career. It's not how you get new ideas. It's not how you have discussions. Yeah, you can be happy sitting at home alone doing something, and maybe you're content. But I think that puts a ceiling on you socially, politically, professionally. It just really limits you to sit at home all the time and work on screens and watch things on screens.
Why would you say that people with autism and or ADHD are usually introverts?
Because it's exhausting to deal with humans one-on-one.
Come on, but this is true for everyone.
It is, but it's really easy for me to misunderstand language. It is for my daughters as well. And that can be really frustrating, right? You make a mistake. You don't know what you said wrong. You don't know why you didn't understand someone was sad instead of you thought they might be happy and it turned out they were angry. There's just a lot of reading that it takes practice to do. And it's so much easier to not practice, right? It's so much easier to sit at home. This idea that I tell my daughters, if you want a good career, you're going to have to deal with people. That's, it's not something they want to hear. They want to hear, oh, well, I can sit at home. I can be comfortable, right? I can be comfortable on my couch and not take any risks. Humans are risky, right? I mean, we upset each other. We occasionally say something that was offensive or annoying. We don't always get all the signals right. And that doesn't matter if you're autistic or not. And what I do is, as an autistic, over the years, I've had to memorize things. I certainly did not have the same number of friends as other people. I haven't had the same career success in some ways, but what I've had to do is I've had to teach myself what things mean, what idioms are, what different things mean in different languages and different cultures. And yeah, it's work, but so is getting up and putting on a suit and tie when I go into the classroom or a lecture hall. I mean, who likes to wear a tie? Right? I mean, I don't like to wear a tie. Right? I'm not wearing one now, but if I'm going to go lecture at a research university, I'm expected to put on the tie, put on the jacket. I still don't know what purpose the tie serves. To me, I don't know what it does, except maybe keep food off my shirt. But yeah, I don't know what a tie does, but I put it on. There are social norms that you have to learn, right? You have to learn that there are social norms like saying thank you and saying, I hope you have a good day. Or when someone asks how you are, not giving them a half-hour answer. And, as an autistic, that's a thing. If someone asks you a question, you answer honestly, well, that could be the wrong thing to do in a social situation. So, you have to teach my daughters, just say fine, say thank you, I hope you're well too, or something like that. Those are things you need to learn. You're not going to learn them on a couch. You're just not.
Yeah, the unspoken rules of society.
Yes, and there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. And I feel as a non-autistic, non-ADHD individual, I would say those are just learned by, what's the term that I'm looking for? You don't question them. That's what I want to just say. They just come out of you naturally because that's what you were expecting. You just don't question them. So there's something about people with autism and the ADHD that you just question it way more.
And I don't know if you're familiar. There's a series that my wife and I watched that is it's out of Vienna. We watched the Vienna Blood series. I love foreign shows. Astrid is another famous one that I love. But so the Vienna Blood series is set in Austria, and there's a great line that says Vienna is a city built on traditions. That there are all these rules and these hierarchies. And it's really good if you like rules and you like hierarchy and you can learn to memorize those rules, as some autistics can do. You can thrive in that rigid, okay, I'm supposed to call this person sir, Mr., doctor, sir, right? I mean, that's kind of a twist of the language there that English doesn't have. We don't call someone Mr., doctor, sir, but if you're in that culture, that's what you would do. That cultural difference, you watch how the young doctor in this works, and the doctor is very rigid in his ways, the young doctor, the young Jewish doctor, and he likes that order, that organization, and it's set in the Austrian-Hungarian Empire of, I think, 1906. So Vienna it's a culture based on all these traditions, and you pass on this side of the hallway, you say these things to the right people. Well, those are learned, right? We're not born knowing those things. We're not born knowing which knot to tie for which opera. And those are things that we don't do. And obviously now, if you come to America, I go to the theater and people are wearing, Dawkins t-shirts and, and they're in their shorts and sandals at the opera in the United States. But that wouldn't be what you do in 1904 Vienna.
Yeah, but I would say that a lot of those traditions, like, that's just my interpretation of it. Like, they are so old that they lost meaning. You know, you don't even know why you're doing them. You just do them because that's the way it has been done forever. You know, like when someone sneezes, you need to say bless you. Like, I don't even know you, dude. Like, but you sneeze next to me, I need to say bless you. You know, I don't even know what bless you means. Like, you should be blessed by a god. Which god? Like, if you start questioning a lot of those traditions, they don't make any sense.
No, it's like I said that, you know, I saw the tie, you know, it's decorative.
The tie,
okay, it's decorative, but why did this come into being? So, you know, as an autistic, I'm sitting there trying to teach my daughters that there are all these rules they're going to have to learn that I've had to learn. And I just think that that's a really difficult thing. But I want my students to do that. What I'm finding is after COVID, you know, that was 6 years ago. So my students who are now 18, 19 years old in college, they were 12. And so during their middle years, their grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, during those years, they weren't together in settings. They weren't learning to socialize at a very important time in your development, right? Those preteen and early teen years are when you learn how social structures work, and you learn about, unfortunately, the bullies, and you learn about the outcasts, and you learn all these social things when you're a preteen that my students, because of the pandemic, they were at home staring at screens. Mm. And then you add in how many students I have who are neurodiverse. Not only, you know, did they have to deal with the pandemic, but now they're along with peers who don't really have these social skills. And that's why I consider it, you know, so important to have them around tables doing things on paper, even if the end result is a video game or a text-based game or something, or even a tabletop game. We do that sometimes. But I want them to understand that good ideas come from other people.
What do you mean by that? Good ideas come from other people. So why they need to learn that specifically?
Well, as a writer, right, I write for stage and screen on the side. When I'm not teaching, I'm a writer, a creative writer. And I'm amazed at how many times I hear something and it's so good. You know, like someone will be sitting near me and they'll say, gee, I think that was my second marriage. No, maybe it was my third marriage where we got married at the beach. And you're just like, ooh, that's a great line for a play. Right? Someone will say something so off, and it's just a little off. Or someone will have that idea, you know, why can't our characters do this unexpected thing in the game? Why not? And someone will say, well, but it's never been allowed before. You've got these 6 traits, and these 6 traits are what you have. You have, I don't know if you're familiar with, right, the 9x9 grid of lawful good to chaotic evil.
Yeah, that's
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I know it.
So my students, one of the things they have to do is they roll dice and they find out where they are on the grid. Are you lawful good? Are you lawful neutral? Chaotic, you know, chaotic lawful, you know, chaotic evil. And someone will ask, well, why can't my character do this? And someone else will say, well, it's never been done before. Well, that's when you do it, right? That's all. So you need those ideas from other people that push you outside the norm. Those ideas that you're like, oh, I should do that. Those moments when you're designing something, when someone says, why hasn't it been done before? So what I say to my students is I get a lot of really great ideas from other people just rambling and talking. And as a writer, I will hear something and I think, wow, that can't be right. And yet it works. And so you think about it and you play with it. As a game designer, right? I started off as a computer programmer. And again, that was my comfortable world. And I still love the idea of developing games and developing software, and I enjoy it a lot. But I learned more from other programmers, not books, not, you know, today my students would go to Claude or Gemini and they would say, you know, how do you do a bubble sort? right? But I had mentors who said, I want you to write 3 different sorts on this platform and test it to see which one is actually faster, because their experience has taught them things that I did not understand. That it might turn out that on Apple hardware, a different sort is faster than on Intel hardware. And you're like, well, wait, this is the sort I was told in my textbook is the best sort. We don't use a bubble sort. That's not efficient. But then somebody else tells you, because of their experience, hey, you should try this on each piece of hardware and learn it. So my ideas came from other programmers. And then as a writer, my ideas came from other writers who had struggled and found out things, or someone who says, why can't you? So our best ideas don't come from us, because if I sit around, read my books, right, I look over at my shelf, I've got my SQL books over there, my website design books. So I've got PostgreSQL, MySQL, Oracle SQL, whatever. But if I did everything by the book, I would eventually create mediocre code. But when someone else says, why can't we try this? Why can't we do this? You end up finding out new things and better ways instead of just recreating what's been done. The way I look at it is, if you're only recreating what's been done, that is what AI can do, right? AI can create, as a programmer, a generic bubble sort. A bubble sort is just, I don't know about your audience, but I know you'll understand, but it's where you basically compare 2 variables and the bigger one goes to the bottom. And then you compare the next 2 and the bigger one goes down. And you do it inside of a loop. And it's very inefficient in some ways, but it's step by step. Is this one greater than this one? Yes, it is. Move it down. Is this one greater than this one? No, it isn't. Keep it up. And you bubble sort from top to the bottom until the smallest value is floating up at the top. Very tedious, very slow. But Claude can do that. Gemini can do that. AI can create very mediocre bubble sorts, because AI can only create what it reads in the books, what it reads from samples, what it grabs from, I don't know, if like a Slashdot out there or Reddit. So it'll grab that knowledge, and what you get from AI is mediocrity. And if you sit by yourself, you get mediocrity. You only get new ideas when you dare to break what isn't done. AI can only do what was done, and you by yourself can only do what you've read about. But when you get a group together that's willing to say, ooh, let's bend the rules, let's break the rules, that's where new ideas come from. And so even as an autistic, even though that's really hard for me to do those social situations, the reality is, whether I'm in a writer's room working on a play with a dramaturg and a director, or I'm coming up with a new game for my students to develop in the classroom, all of my best ideas come from those moments when I'm with other people willing to say, what if? Without other people, I'm just going to create what's been done.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a very, very good trait you have. Allow feedback to come in and interact with other people. Like, I was talking with Philip, a good friend of mine, last week. He's a producer in the game industry for 16 years. And we agree, both of us, that it doesn't matter how much hard skills you have. If you don't have the social skills, if you don't know the right people, if you don't know how to communicate your value, like, you're not getting that far, So you might be the most skilled, high-functioning autistic programmer in the world. If you don't know how to communicate the software that you just developed, or you don't talk to other real people in real life, maybe like you might have an amazing piece of software, but no one will ever know about it. No one will ever use it. So I really get what you're saying here. Like, the social aspect is fundamental.
I want to throw out a statistic, and it's outdated. It's been a few years now, but studies in Germany, the United Kingdom, and the US found that 85% of autistics with a college degree were underemployed or unemployed.
What?
85%.
That's a lot.
So what happens is, I'm very good at learning, right? I have a PhD, I have a master's degree, I have a Master of Fine Arts degree, I've got 2 bachelor's degrees, right? I'm really good at learning, but I'm not good at the social. Right, I'm not a department chair. I'm not a high-ranking professor. Right, I'm a mid-range, local college instructor. The social skills required of going to conferences, to get promoted in academia, you've got to go to conferences, you've got to meet your colleagues, you've got to get published, you've got to do these things. One reason I started the podcast and the blog in 2007, started blogging, was I was more comfortable behind a screen. It was easier behind a screen, but that doesn't get you a job. That doesn't get you promoted. That doesn't get you published. It's not enough. And so I started with the blog, and then was it 2017, maybe 16, 17, started doing the podcast. And now I'm thinking about adding video. I'm just now getting comfortable with the idea of more than being heard on but those things are really important, because as a professor or an instructor, I'm relying on other colleagues wanting to talk to my students, wanting to hire my students, wanting to share knowledge with me. I can't just be in my own little world. And I know many other autistic professors, right? There's Temple Grandin here in the United States, Stephen Shore, Lars Perner. There are a lot of us who are academic all-stars. There's even a book by that name. And those of us who are autistic who can do the test really well, I can take a test. I can score high on an IQ test. I can score well on an SAT or a GRE. That's one set of skills. But the reality is there's social intelligence. That social intelligence is as important as anything that can be measured with the test. And that's why I said at the very beginning, in the United States, where we're doing all these high stakes testing, we are not teaching. We are preparing worker bees, people who can do a task and do it well enough. What we really need is creativity again, and creativity is going to come from that interaction, those questions, the what ifs, I think you're wrong, and I want to politely disagree. That's a skill, right? Teaching someone to say in a group, you have a really good point there, but I think we could adjust it. I think your idea is good, but I have an idea to even make it up a notch better. Something like that. That's a soft skill, not just, well, that's a dumb idea, right? It takes a while for students to hear. We were talking before going on air about how I love the old 2D scrollers, the side-to-side scrollers. Somebody had to say, well, I'm going to take a hedgehog and he's going to run and jump over things. And somebody else had to say, oh, let's add these other characters, and or Rayman, another side scroller like Sonic. And somebody had to say, let's do something different. Let's add these strange crabs, or let's add these ghosts, or let's add these other, deadly flowers that spit out and kill the running character. Somebody has to say, I have an idea. It's not that yours is bad, but I want to take that idea and go up a notch. Right? Somebody somewhere said, let's go one step further. And if it breaks, it breaks. And then we try another idea with the story and another idea with the game. But those only happen when you're interacting with other people, and when you have those interaction skills where you can do it. We were talking about Vienna Blood, all that really polite language that you hear in my wife. I'm just thinking now, my wife has an office in Luxembourg. She's an engineer, and they have an office in Luxembourg. I am always amazed at the incredible politeness. This formality of yes, sir, no, yes, ma'am, and have a wonderful day, all that stuff that here in the U.S. has gone by the side. But those social skills matter. That ability to say, I hope you're okay, may I help you? It's amazing how learning those little rules, yes, some of them are silly, but learning them would help so many people who are neurodiverse, would help so many people with ADHD or autism. And no, they're not going to be easy to learn. And I'm not asking people to change who they are. But just like you and I can't see the purpose of a tie, and a tie is silly to us, or at least to me, it's silly, but I still put one on. And we can call it masking, and we can call it cosplay. I apparently cosplay as a professor. Right?
I mean,
I put on a suit and tie and I pretend I'm smart. It is cosplay. It's stupid. I'm putting on a jacket and tie and that somehow makes me more believable. But,
it
autistics
does.
will say they don't want to mask.
Yeah.
But the reality is everyone in business is masking.
Yeah, so everyone in business is fake. Let's agree on I mean, we're not saying anything outrageous here. Like you just mentioned all of those courtesy, like all this fluff language. That's all fake. Let's be honest here. It's just a matter like if you like to play it or not. A lot of people do. I personally don't, but it's just me. It's part of, like, I feel like you need to signal that you're part of this tribe somehow, that you're not like I don't know, but you need to signal that you're playing the game, somehow, even though it's nonsense. It's what humans informally found in a natural way, how they found to coexist in this office environment.
And some of it's really silly, right? I mean, some of the labels that have emerged with international business, right? You're not a barista at Starbucks. You are a partner.
Oh my God.
Well, you're not. Did they give some shares in the company? And at Amazon, you're not a warehouse employee in Europe. Oh no, you're an Amazon associate.
You're triggering me, man.
What does that even mean? You're an associate.
It's mind control. They're trying to brainwash you. Yeah.
So, an autistic might say, and unfortunately we do tend to say, well, this is stupid. Right? I mean, I would say this is stupid, but I have to remind myself, does anyone really care if I am an assistant professor, an associate professor, a full professor, a tenure track professor? Nobody cares. Not one of my students cares what the stupid thing on my business card is. Right? But they do that. So that's part of the game, and you have to learn to play it. That for your first 6 years, you're an associate. First 6, you're an assistant professor. Next 6, you're an associate professor, whatever it is. It's like ranks in the military. And it's ironic, right? How many so-called leftists, progressives are in education? But boy, if you told them that rank doesn't matter, they would scream.
Christopher, I just noticed I missed the mark on the sponsor, so we're going to have to go into a quick sponsor break. We're going to be right back. Parents, have you been searching for an app that's both fun and educational for your kids? I've got something exciting to share with you today. It's called FunTastic Plus. FunTastic Plus is a free app where education meets entertainment, designed specially for children ages 2 to 12. It's built by experts, completely ad-free and totally safe, so you can feel confident handing your phone or tablet to your little ones. Inside the app, kids will find a world of engaging content, their favorite cartoons, audiobooks and songs to spark imagination, educational games that make learning fun, and all of that to keep them entertained while supporting their development. FunTastic Plus is available on iPhones and iPads and even works offline, so whether you are on a road trip, flying, or just at home, your kids will always have something to enjoy. So if you're ready to give your kids a space that's both fun and educational, download now FunTastic Plus for free on the App Store. FunTastic Plus is a safe and ad-free educational platform for kids. Link on the description below. Parents, download now FunTastic Plus. It's plenty of fun, and I'm sure you and your kids gonna love it. It's available now on iPhone and iPads. You can download it on the App Store. And that's about it. Thank you once again, FunTastic Plus, for being the channel sponsor. All right, Christopher, we are back, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm enjoying this.
So I have a question regarding autism and ADHD. So you have both, right?
Yes.
Is it common for individuals with either autism or ADHD to have them as a combo?
So the comorbidity is fairly high. I've read estimates that it's over 40%. I know that both myself and my oldest daughter have both diagnoses. The challenge is separating the ADHD from the autistic diagnosis. So For example, I'm very bad at executive function. So executive function would be time management, planning, basically kind of keeping track of the daily routine. Now, for some autistics, this gets really severe. They may forget to engage in basic hygiene, basic scheduling of, brushing your teeth, taking a bath, taking a shower, those things. So in ADHD, it tends to be less pronounced if it's just ADHD. But as I said, in the autistics with the symptoms, it can be pretty bad. They can, well, I didn't need to shower. I didn't want to shower. Forgot to shower. And so hygiene becomes a real issue for those with both diagnoses. The ADHD by itself, though, what I see in my students who only have the ADHD diagnosis, it is generally a time management and a focus issue. They are easily distracted.
Can I stop you for a second? On the hygiene issue, that's very, very interesting that you mentioned, because I once dated this girl who had both, and I would say it was quite the opposite. She was very, very clean. She was very tidy. It's like one of the most tidiest and clean person that I ever met. So what's the deal then?
So you can have the compulsive schedule and maintenance, or you can have the opposite, right?
So it operates on extremes, basically. That's what you're saying.
Does.
Okay.
And it's a case where, like, I have one daughter who, she is constantly taking care of her face, taking care of her hair. She's, the oldest is very obsessive. She worries about everything, right? She worries about her grades. She worries about being on time. She is always worried.
Oh.
Almost obsessive compulsive, again, very similar to the autism ADHD combo. So she is like me. I'm always worried about being late. So I'm checking my phone, I'm checking my calendar, I'm checking, I just worry all the time. And those people who tend to hyper-focus do that. My youngest, we are convinced that, for the last 2 days, she has completely forgotten to wash her hair. We know she has stepped into the shower, but we're not sure what she has done in the shower. And this is because she just doesn't really seem to care. It just doesn't register her to her that it's part of the routine you need to do. And so we do see both extremes in my children. One is hyper-focused, very obsessive, worries about every little thing. And the other is just kind of like randomly bopping through life at ADHD speed. I mean, she's the hyperactive version. Instead of the hyper-focus, she's the hyperactive. So my oldest will sit and draw for 6 hours on her tablet, right? She'll fire up her software, get out her tablet, and she will do artwork and animation for 6 hours straight. I don't think my youngest does anything for 6 minutes straight. And they are both diagnosed on ADHD. They both need medication. They're on different medications and have entirely different symptoms, but they both have the diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It just expresses itself so differently. And I think that that's why when I talk about neurodiversity, I always point out that you really need to know the individual as a teacher, as a parent, as a coworker, a supervisor. It is so important to ask the person, what are your needs? What are your challenges? How can I help you succeed? Because what would help my oldest may work against my youngest. And vice versa. What works for my youngest could be a complete disaster for my oldest.
Have they always been open for medication and talk about those issues?
They have been aware since, I would say, maybe the ages of 7, roughly grade 2 here in the US. So right around grade 2, they get assessed. And the oldest has, she has the formal diagnosis of the autism and the ADHD. She is working on self-regulation, how to control herself, how to do her own scheduling, things like that. She was just recently released what we call an individualized education program. So she is now independent. She doesn't get the supports at school. She's able to manage herself now as she's turning 14. My youngest is 2 years younger. And she knows that she has dysgraphia and dyslexia, and that she is ADHD. The challenge with her is she just can't focus. She'll go into her room for something and get distracted, and 20 minutes later, you're like, what are you doing? Where are you? I saw a toy. Grab the toy. And I'm like, okay, we were supposed to get our shoes on to go somewhere. So the way I've looked at it is there's the hyperactivity that is the hyperfocus that I see in a lot of autistics. But my youngest doesn't have the autism diagnosis, and her hyperactivity it reminds me of, right, the joke that the dog sees the squirrel and looks away. Yeah. Oops, squirrel. That would be my youngest. Oops, there's a butterfly. There's a squirrel. Oops. And off the trail she goes. So that difference is really amazing to me, and the treatments are different. As a parent, my end goal is that neither child be medicated, just as I'm no longer medicated. I would like them to learn skills and learn strategies for success. Like I said, that comes from being in social situations. I know that social situations aren't easy for the girls. So they're in Girl Scouts, they're in sports, they're in music, they're in those things. But if they tell me, okay, this sport's not working, I let them out. My wife and I, if they tell us, I'm sorry, Mom, Dad, I don't really like basketball. Okay, let's try something else. They both like swimming, because swimming is kind of individual, but it's also a team sport. You do the relay, you get points as a team, but you're not really passing a ball to a teammate. You don't have to learn how to read a teammate's signals. So they really love swimming. So that seems to be the sport that has worked really well for their social levels. My youngest also likes robotics. We do a lot of robotics competitions, so she likes that. She loves coding. She's in the other room right now, coding. They have found platforms where you can extend games, create your own playable fields. I know that some of your listeners will be familiar with. You can modify things like Minecraft. There's a Roblox knockoff that you can create your own adventures that's available on the Apple Arcade that they like. They love building their own games, testing their own code. But again, they're different forms of neurodiversity. And I think that that's so important. When I'm working with my students, there are some who are the ADHD or the ADHD plus autism, and they are very rigid. Tell me the rules, tell me the points, give me the focus, tell me give me a rubric, tell me how you're going to grade every point. How do I get each point? And then there are those that with the ADHD that getting them to even listen to a lecture for more than 10 minutes is nearly impossible. So I think that's what we need to know, is that the human brain is so different. And I really don't know that there's a way we can say these are the traits of autism. We know that it's social communication. We know that speech, idioms, sarcasm, facial features, face blindness are all parts of autism. Repetitive movement, right? So I will tap, I will rock, I will do some of those things when I'm tired. So we know the traits of autism, but how it expresses itself, or how ADHD expresses itself, is it's very different. It's very easy to see the dysgraphia. So dysgraphia is like dyslexia, except it's trouble writing. My daughter can read really well. She's a voracious reader, my youngest. But when she tries to write, it's in secret code. It's good luck. And she can't read it back. But if she types, she's fine.
Is that why doctors, would say that a lot of doctors... No, I'm serious though, because they all write like gibberish. Would you say, and to be a doctor, you need to really hyper focus on medicine for what, 8 years? You need you need to have autism or ADHD. I'm joking. You don't need to, but it helps, right?
I think this is where Temple Grandin and some of the other scholars who are both autistic and researchers, I think they're onto something. Is that the hyper focus really pays off in fields like engineering.
Oh.
Give me an engineer who will spend 8 hours testing a bridge. Right? I want that engineer who will sit there for 8 hours at the computer and stress test things and run
Sorry, we're back.
It's okay.
Please continue.
That happens.
We're talking about the bridge.
Yeah, hyper focus is really great in an engineer. I certainly, or a doctor who's performing a 4-hour, surgery. I want that hyper focus, but again, the labels, whether it's autism or ADHD or whatever, part of me is, I think the labels make it very easy to think, oh, well, this person has ADHD. It means they can't pay attention. Well, I know people with ADHD and autism who are so hyper-focused that they'll spend 12 hours solving a problem, or they'll play a game from beginning to end. And you're like, doesn't that game take 30 hours? Like, you just did nothing but this game? But, that hyper-focus is part of their personality. And so I don't think the labels help us all the time when the expression of neurodiversity can vary so wildly, even within the same diagnostic criteria.
But isn't that like a double-edged sword or double-edged knife? I don't know how the expression goes. Because in one hand, they're super interested on the subject. Let's take the bridge again. But once these interests fade, there's nothing in this world that can bring them back to pay attention to it, right? It's just physically impossible for them to even look at it again. The bridge, like once the interest is gone, it's gone. Isn't that the case?
So one of the traits, one of the diagnostic criteria for autism is perseverance, perseveration. Basically that lock on one topic, right? That favorite topic or that favorite activity. And when I see it in young people or young adults, it can be very frustrating, especially for their parents, right? You've got a 21-year-old who's collecting My Little Ponies, because they've collected them since they were 8, and just that's all they do. Or they know every Disney film. They can tell you the year it was made, all of the cast and crew, and they know everything about Disney films. I met an autistic who works for a bank in Pittsburgh, and the gentleman could tell you every single stat of every single Pittsburgh professional team for every year. I mean, you name a year and he could tell you what the hockey team had done. Or, yes, those are really, to me, they're almost a disability because nobody else is going to care. It's a parlor trick in some ways that people, oh, wow, that's really cool. We can ask you, just like Rain Man, we can ask you, was January 13th, 2026, what day of the week was it? And you can say, well, it's impressive. Or if you can recreate music, again, if you can recreate anything you've heard, you've got perfect pitch and you can recreate it, that's neat. But, where does that creativity come in? Where you can create new music, where you can create a new toy, where you can create and again, a lot of the autistics, a lot of the neurodiverse individuals in general, that's a struggle for them. Because they find comfort in what they know and what they do. They find comfort in that repetition, in that single topic or that specialized field. One of the autistics who's very famous and has written a series of books, her special interest is the band ELO.
ELO? What is that?
ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra. It's out of the UK. And anything. Even an academic paper, she will fit ELO into the academic paper. I read one of her academic books and ELO is in the book. And it's like, well, okay, you love ELO. I get it. Okay.
From the 70s.
Yeah. I know it sounds strange. I mean, to me, it's like you're special interest is ELO. They don't even have that many albums. That's got to be a very, very narrow interest. I've met some that have K-pop fanaticism. So, and people will say, well, what is your special interest? And I'm somewhat grateful. My special interest has always been computers and games and tech. And thankfully, you can find a job in it. You can't find a job in collecting My Little Pony.
I mean, maybe if you create a YouTube channel and you're very consistent
you're
about
right.
it, but you need to be consistent about it's like
Yeah.
you're not. It's like you're creating the rules basically.
Yeah, but I'm fortunate. I know it. I know that because my interest is code, and my interest is writing. I know I'm lucky, right? Because I can hyper focus on what I love, and nobody's going to think it's weird.
Yeah.
But if I hyper focused on statistics for the Premier League, people would eventually get sick of it. Right? If that's all I cared about and all I talked about. But what I have found is that because I like gaming, it is amazing. I can talk about tabletop gaming, and they'll talk about Catan, or they'll talk about Exploding Kittens, and if I talk about video games, I can find people who want to talk about Halo or God of War. They want to talk. So I find that because my special interest is such that it's inviting to more people, it's not as off-putting as the autistics I meet who are just latched on to something that's not as socially flexible.
Yeah.
I know I'm lucky. I mean, if my interest were something that nobody else cared about, that would be problematic, and so I'm lucky.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty cool as well. Games, I'm a little bit biased, but I agree.
Right. I mean, my students, they probably want to roll their eyes because I will start talking about how, okay, well, in 1972, at MIT, they were playing Cave Adventure, which eventually becomes Zork. And then I might talk about the 1970s and the rise of Atari, and then ColecoVision and Intellivision. And I might go down all these paths, and my students may be thinking, yeah, I don't care. So I have to be aware that I can't get into the, what did Bushnell do at Atari, and, what did the Trammell family do with Commodore, and, how did Jack basically kill off the Amiga and then go over to Atari. My students don't care about that stuff. Now I do still. I still get all excited by, some of the best games were written by young women during the 1980s. So there were all these great women developers coming out with some amazing games. I love the history of Nintendo, right from a card company to a video game company. I love that stuff. My students, I know they're like, Dr. Wyatt, shut up. So, I'm aware that my interest can be as off-putting as collecting a doll or collecting trivia. So, I have to make sure that I stick to a schedule in class and that I stay on topic, and because I know people aren't going to care. You and I, we might be able to talk about the history of games and how they evolved. I really think that Castle Wolfenstein and Duke Nukem really created the first-person perspective shooter. But again, nobody else. My students are like, yeah, whatever. You're talking like old computers. What's a Duke Nukem, and why do I care about Castle Wolfenstein?
Those are great games, man. They should care about it. They should. I think they should. Just say.
But yeah, I'm lucky. My special interest, most students will put up with it for a little while.
Christopher, early on in the conversation, you were talking about your daughter, and you said she is, and instead of saying she has ADHD. Why did you make this difference?
So for both of my daughters, right, they are all of their traits, right? My daughter will tell you, my oldest will tell you, I'm autistic, I have ADHD, I am, this is who I am.
I am ADHD.
Yeah, just like I might say I am a diabetic, or I am, I am whatever. And, like in my case, I think that there is, especially for young people, especially for young autistics, there is an identity in it now Thanks to Reddit, Strange Planet, WhatsApp, there are lots of communities now on Discord and other places where these students have really formed a sense of identity, just like some people might say. And so they will say, I am autistic like. Another one that they will identify with, which really surprised me, was a character named Luz, L-U-Z, from a Disney show called The Owl House. And she is apparently autistic, and she has she's LGBTQ, so she's a queer young character in a Disney cartoon. It's I think it's Luz. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I mean, that's really it's amazing. My students will say, I'm like Luz. Another one that they have really grabbed onto is Luna Loud. Luna Loud is another character who is different in many ways, possibly neurodiverse, but she is a guitar player and she has a girlfriend, Samantha. So again, my girls, my students, they identify with young women who are saying, I am autistic, or I am ADHD, I am LGBT. So autism has become sort of a social community and identity for young people that it wasn't 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
What's your take on it?
So for me, I think if young people feel that that's giving them a sense of connection and it gives them a sense of bravery and belonging, social groups to go out and do things with, people to talk to, I think that's a positive if they're actually going out and socializing and learning those connections. I think it is, again, I want them off the couch though, and I want them out doing things. So I think that's the power of it, is to say I can go out there and I can explore and I can be in a band, or I can go exploring, like the Luz from the Owl House goes exploring, Luna Loud as a musician, right? For them to see these characters. For me, I did not like, there was a TV show here in the US that had an autistic doctor. And I'm trying to remember the name of it now, even, because it was one of those that I just didn't get into. But the character was very stereotypically autistic, and it was based on, I want to say it was a South Korean TV series it was based on. But this idea of a doctor who is super autistic, rigid in speech, very robotic, very factual, seemed disconnected from people.
Oh,
so it was
Dr. House.
Not House. How it came after House. Oh,
I don't know then. If you know, leave on the comments below, guys.
Yeah. It starred a famous young man who had been in a lot of movies too. So I know it was a big deal, but it was a medical show about an autistic doctor.
Oh, I think I know who you're referring to. He was the same boy he's a man now, who played Charlie in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I just saw the face right there. Yeah. And, it's that idea that autism is this, you're this rigid, unfeeling, unemotional person. That just really bothers me. Yeah, I can see his face right there on the 15 on the screen rant.
The good doctor.
The good doctor.
There we go.
It was just, House was one extreme, and the good doctor was another extreme. And that's why I think shows like Astrid are a little bit better, where Astrid's autism is there, and it's not a superpower. It is a disability. She does struggle. She struggles to work with her colleague who's an inspector in Paris. So she struggles with those things. And again, for young people like my daughter to say, well, look, Astrid is successful. She's a criminologist, but she knows she's sensitive to light. She's sensitive to sound. She struggles with social situations. She wants her routine. Characters like that just become, I think, a good example without being stereotypes that make fun of autism or reduce it to a caricature of itself.
Fun of autism? Is that a thing? Are people making fun of autistic people?
Well, unfortunately, you are probably very fortunate. You're overseas. So here in the United States, Gavin Newsom is governor of California, state of 38 million. He's thinking of running for president. He disclosed that he has a learning disability, that he is dyslexic.
Okay.
Our president said that someone with that kind of brain damage and mental illness should not be a leader.
Okay, but you're taking the president's.
Unfortunately, I hear it among certain students who follow that crowd. Remember, he represents a very large portion of the United States. So yes, there are a portion of podcasters out there. Our Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK, has said autism needs to be cured. Autistics are broken. Autistics are inferior. RFK made a whole career of this. That's what RFK Jr. does. And he's our head of Health and Human Services now. So we have a country's leadership saying, like I said, I'm very thankful. You're seeing me now I'm now in my 50s. I have taught myself a whole lot. But if you were to meet me 10 years ago, I struggled with speaking in public. I rocked more. I had more insecurity. And here I am now thinking, we've got all these great role models. We've got people like Temple Grandin. We've got people like Stephen Shore, Don Prince Hughes, Lars Perner, all these wonderful people saying, I am autistic, but I can succeed with support. And here's the supports I need, and here's how you might do it. Now, in just the last 4 years, especially the last year, we have leadership in this country that is mocking people using the R word, which had been removed from the English discourse. I know your listeners may not be familiar with it, but what used to be called mental retardation is it's a phrase we don't use anymore. And now we have a president who's throwing it around as an insult to governors and senators he doesn't like. And we're seeing it online among young men. There's a group, I don't know where your audience falls overall, but we've got Nick Fuentes out there saying things that echo RFK, that echo the president, Tucker Carlson echoing the president. So I do see some young men in my classes saying things that are incredibly hurtful to the students with dyslexia, the students with ADHD, the students with autism, saying that people who are neurodiverse are broken, flawed, that there's really no such thing as depression, just get over it, that there's really no such thing as a learning disability, you're just lazy. And we had gotten so far. We had come so far. And now it's like we went back to the 1960s as an overall society. And there are plenty of times where my wife is like, I've got an office in Luxembourg. And I get it, because we had come so far as a society in the United States, and now I think we are, especially this week, we are looking like the bully of the world, and that comes down to personal relationships too. When you insult people and call them names and call them stupid and call them lazy and call them damaged, it slips in, especially young people. They'll start copying it. They'll start mimicking it.
Well, I know for a fact that depending how you see any situation, you can transform any problem into a solution, right? Mm-hmm. So if he believes that people, I'm not saying that he said that, but if he believes that people with ADHD, autism are a problem to society, maybe if he were smart about it, he could make it easier for people like that to create businesses, because they know how to hyperfocus, so they could create business easier and generate more money, So it's all the way you see the situation. You can see it through so many different perspectives, and it's a little bit unfortunate that he sees that way.
I will say the most damaging thing that is happening right now in the United States is the spread of measles, whooping cough, and other preventable diseases. Thousands of cases of measles this year. The U.S. will likely be removed from the list of countries that had eradicated measles and polio because RFK and the president are telling people not to get vaccinated. So if you look at the news in the United States, what's happening with the outbreaks here in Texas, New Mexico, the Carolinas, children are dying. So, if you look at those headlines and you know that children are dying because they're afraid to get a vaccine because it might give them autism or ADHD or some other mental deficiency, the consequences of this will not just be a year. It will go on for decades. Because all those people who didn't get vaccinated at 6, 7, 8 are going to get these diseases later.
Is there... One second, I'm sorry. Is that where ADHD and autism comes from?
No. I think that there's a lot of research out there that has conclusively, especially out of some really great European studies, Finland in particular, Sweden, because they have national health care, they're able to track everybody to get the data. They have not found correlations. I trust their data. There are vaccines that we have not approved in the U.S. that are approved in the EU. And the EU has much better health standards in terms of approving food, approving vaccines, much higher testing. Again, my specialty is only education, right? So all I can say is as a teacher who tries to help other teachers, but as a parent, as a dad, I worry. I don't want my kids to get a disease that could be prevented. And I don't want them to be called broken or to be treated like, oh, well, you caused your kid's disability because you got them vaccinated. And that to me is a horrible message to parents. It's like, oh, well, you're to blame. That's just a horrible thing to make parents feel. And we know that the vaccine papers that said autism was linked to vaccines, Andrew Wakefield and others, that those studies were deeply flawed and withdrawn from publication because those studies were flawed. So you have great doctors out there like Paul Offit trying to explain that there is no autism connection. I'm thinking of Peter Hotez, Paul Offit, some other wonderful doctors whose research is in the field of autism and healthcare, and some doctors and individuals that I've had on my own podcast or talked to for my blog. I do trust experts, but I think that we are in a time now where experts aren't valued. A lot of people think, well, the experts got things wrong during COVID or they got things wrong about something else. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. And I still remember, right, in the 1980s, they told our parents, your kids are playing video games, they're all going to become violent serial killers, right? I mean, we were listening to European heavy metal. We all had our like I said, our Dokken and Def Leppard and whatever else we were listening to. We were listening to the metal. We were playing Castle Wolfenstein, and we were Duke Nukem. And I don't know about you, but it seems like you have not ended up a victim of the brainwashing of those games.
Not yet.
Yeah, right. I think, but when you tell that to Americans and you try to say, maybe the problem instead is that at 16 I can go down the street and buy an AR-15. Maybe that's more problematic than playing Halo. That's not a conversation Americans want to have. They'd rather say we can blame everything on something simple: autism, vaccines. We are ADHD, the red dye number, whatever. Food dyes. They still have ADHD in Europe. You cannot use artificial dyes in Europe, right? Your orange cola looks like it's naturally orange. It is not dyed with all the junk that we use in the US. And yet there are still people in Europe with ADHD and autism.
So where it comes from then?
I am not qualified to say. I assume that genetic research and neuroscience will come up with markers where they will decide if it's de novo, meaning random genetics, or if it's hereditary. But I look at my family, I look at other families, and it certainly seems to follow generationally by a higher significance than other things like diabetes. So if the genetic markers parallel something like diabetes, then I think we need to pay attention to it. But again, for me, the other thing is I know that there are two possible explanations for my autistic traits. It could be genetics. I look at my family. There was a lot of hyperactivity. There's certainly a lot of hyperfocus, social struggles. Right? I could look at past family members and try to wonder if they were autistic or ADHD in the past. But I was also a breech birth, and forceps were used, and there was some frontal lobe damage potentially during my birth. So am I a result of birth trauma to the left frontal lobe, or am I a result of genetics, or am I both? I don't think it matters so much as this is who I am and how do I get around like I said, I have calendars and timers, and my wife keeps me on schedule, and my students, my students joke I'm almost always late, but I have a timer that goes off to try to tell me to get to class. So I work around my executive function. I don't need to be fixed. What I do is I find supports that work for me. But do I know what causes it? No. Do I dare guess? Not entirely. I know it's been discredited based on researchers I do trust, but I think we have a trust issue in society now. There was a time if a group of scientists came out with a study, we would trust it, and now we don't. So there's a real lack of trust of science now, and that bothers me.
So let's see what Google has to say on that.
Yeah, what AI says.
Yeah, it's probably, let's see.
Yeah.
ADHD and autism are neurodevelopmental conditions originating primarily from a combination of strong genetic factors and early brain development differences. So basically what you said.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of, this is what my genes are, and this is what makes me more susceptible to those traits. But we are in a time, though, but if you scroll down and you look at the National Institutes of Health, or you do a search on autism and vaccines, you'll find that's where our input RFK, right? RFK. And this is where he's coming from. There's no credible links, according to anybody, but look at RFK. He reflected our Centers for Disease Control to change their stance. Here's my problem is RFK is a lawyer. I'm an English teacher, a communications teacher, right? I teach games and communications. I am not qualified to be a scientist. RFK, who's a lawyer, is not qualified to be a scientist. I would like to think we could be in a world that trusts game developers to write games, doctors to be doctors, teachers to be teachers.
Oh.
I don't want politicians trying to be any of those things.
Yeah, but then there's no, but basically that's exactly how it operates right now, right? If you want to rule the world, you need to become a politician. And then, not even that, you need to, actually we're run by corporations, right?
Well,
so I'm not sure if I'm going, where I'm going with this. Please go ahead.
Here's my take. I will go off outside of my expertise, right? I'm going way out on a limb. I live in a city where Tesla is one of the biggest employers, right? Tesla and SpaceX. I'm in Austin, Texas. And I know that Tesla and Elon Musk gave a lot of money to a political party, AFD. A lot of money. Paid for their ads, paid for a lot of conferences, and Musk spoke to them. It worries me. He is supposed to be an entrepreneur. I don't know that an entrepreneur should be, in America, from South Africa should be influencing politics in Germany. I just don't know. To me, I think the people of a country should kind of set their own policies instead of billionaires from all over the world setting our policies for us.
Money has no boundaries.
That's it right there. Yeah. There you go.
All right. Man, what a nice conversation. Thank you so much for being a guest. Do you have any final remarks? Do you have anything else that you'd like to say, Christopher?
I will say this has been a lot of fun. I am, like I said, I think I speak for just myself. As an autistic with ADHD, I want people to know that we are out there, that we can integrate, we can learn some of these skills. Will I ever be perfect at communicating? Will I ever be perfectly comfortable in some situations? No, I won't. And you know what? Most people aren't either, right? I teach, of all things, this semester, I was asked to teach public speaking. Now think about that. We're going to have the autistic with ADHD teach our public speaking class at the college. And you just sit there and you think, why? And they said, well, if you can do it and you tell the students, look, here are the tricks I've learned, you're going to help everybody, not just the autistics, not just the neurodiverse, not just, the dyslexics, the OCD, the anxiety. If I can get up there and tell all those students, here's what I do to help myself, let's figure out what helps you help yourself. My gosh, so that's why I'm here. That's why I do these shows. That's why I talk to people as an educator. I just want everyone to know, yeah, I'm autistic. I have ADHD. I had to learn some tricks. Deep down, I'm still laughing at the tie. It's still stupid, but I know to put one on. I still know to go to the lecture. I know to do those things and play the game. And that's what I tell my students. Learn to play the game. It won't kill you. Just don't lose your focus, your morals, your moral compass.
All right. Beautiful. Christopher, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
It was a lot of fun.
All right, everyone. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye. Subscribe. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BRUCAST store, Explore store, filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. Again, that's brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. Be a BRUCAST model and get free stuff. We'd love to see how you and your loved ones enjoy BRUCAST. Snap a picture of yourself, your family, your friends, or even your pets wearing BRUCAST merch, or watching an episode of the show and send it to us and become part of BRUCAST. We will feature you and your pictures at the end of every episode, just like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now. You can upload your pictures at brew-cast.com/contact or tag us on social media. Alright everyone, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye bye.